the American Historical Theater George Washington performance, presented by Union Pacific Railroad, building America for 150 years.
My name is Jose Antonio Palacios Jr., and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Washington's Birthday Celebration, American Historical Theater George Washington performance, sponsored by Union Pacific Railroad. Over the last 5 years, WBCA has featured performances from extraordinary actors, writers from the American Historical Theater. Most especially, Mr. Dean Melissa, whose portrayal of George Washington is something to behold, as you will see this evening. Also, there's a special presentation, so I'm going to hand the microphone over to Ivan, so he can do that. Ivan?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Joe, and I'd like to begin by thanking everybody at the Washington's Birthday Celebration Association, Lisa Morales and Selena Alvarado and Mr. Palacios, and everybody really at the Washington's Birthday Celebration Association. Has just been wonderful to work with. In fact, Union Pacific is celebrating its 150th year of existence, of being in business since our performer tonight, President Abraham Lincoln, signed the Pacific Railway Act in 1862. And for 150 years, we've been building America and really helping our communities grow and prosper along with our employees. And whenever we were coming up with a list of communities that we were going to be working with, Laredo had to be present. We had crossed a tremendous amount of business on rail cars through the gateway here. I was speaking with the Washington's Birthday Celebration Association board member. She was saying how two of her grandfathers, one came in from Ireland and one that came in from Spain, came to work on the railroad, and they stayed here and they raised families. And when we were walking in, I saw Mike Barrera, who was a manager of yard operations for many years here in Laredo, and Armando Almanza, who worked at our International Customer Service Center, working for decades. And then they decide to stay here, and they decide to raise a family, and their children and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren and beyond, raise families and make contributions to Laredo. So we're very happy to be here again. Thank you so much for everybody, and we're very happy to celebrate our 150th year of existence with a very important community like Laredo.
Thank you, Union Pacific, WBCA, this time of year. Every year, Laredoans get a chance to connect again to our deep root of this country and our heritage and our history. Thank you for what you've done. Union Pacific has now provided to the students of this university considerably more than $200,000 in scholarship help. So you have been, I would say, a legacy certainly is the education of young people. Thank you. A company like Union Pacific, who decides in the city of Laredo, part of our business needs to be the education of young people. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Although George Washington and Abraham Lincoln were not contemporaries, in this play we ask you to suspend reality and contemplate how the two extraordinary leaders would have responded to questions regarding the pressing issues of their time.
Welcome to our world, the interview program that talks about trends and issues, developments in the world we live in. I'm Pat Jordan, your host. Now tonight, our focus is going to be on transportation. Where we're going, how we got there, how transportation has affected our country since our country's inception, and what does the future look like. This year is the sesquicentennial, that's 150 years since the launching of the Union Pacific Railroad in a race to go from sea to shining sea, and in a project that actually opened tremendous opportunities and vistas for businesses and individuals in the United States. Welcome, welcome.
Madam Jordan, I will tell you it is my honor and it is a great pleasure to meet you. My pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm delighted as well, and you certainly may call me Pat. Now, how would you prefer that I address you, sir?
Well, in the war, and then since then, even during this presidency, I prefer to be called General Washington. Sometimes people will call me Your Excellency, or, of course, you may call me Mr. President if you wish.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It is a pleasure to have you here tonight. Welcome, President Lincoln. What an honor to have you here as well. I'd like to introduce you to General and President George Washington.
General Washington, I cannot tell you what an honor it is for me to meet you.
You have the advantage of me, sir. Lincoln, was it?
Yes, sir.
President Lincoln, and I am your obedient servant.
Thank you, sir.
We are so pleased to have the both of you here tonight. You know, even into the 21st century, these two men, President Washington and President Lincoln, are both considered our most revered presidents. I thought you'd like to know that.
I'm certainly honored. But before we resume, I don't mean to take away your discourse, Madam Jordan, but can I take a short opportunity to address President Lincoln? Just for a moment?
Of course you may.
Tell me, Mr. Lincoln, how stands our nation in your day? Is our federal union well?
No, sir, I'm afraid it is not well. We have fought a terrible war to preserve the Union.
I recall one of them perfectly. It was January 7th, 1793, first term. Monsieur Jean-Pierre Blanchard, he became the first to fly a hot air balloon in North America. Now, earlier, the Montgolfier brothers had flown for 20 minutes over Paris. And then, of course, Monsieur Blanchard, he flew a balloon across the English Channel. But now he was in North America. I was president, throws it on the ground. And looking skeptically at Monsieur Blanchard, the farmer says, "That may be well enough for you to say, but I do not know as I believe somebody who is addle-brained enough to go flying up in one of these balloons." Or the American turtle. It was the world's first submersible for use in combat. It was designed to attach explosive charges to the sides of ships in harbor.
Well, of course, I had the great opportunity using the railroads both for business and as a tool of war. But before they come along, well, I had to travel the 8th Judicial Circuit in Illinois on horseback or buckboard or carriage or what have you.
Both of you, what were your wives doing all this time?
Oh, well, to me, Mary spent most of her time waiting for me to come home, help out. Here was a girl who grew up on a fine plantation in Kentucky with everything you could desire at your fingertips, house servants to cater to her every whim. And what happens? She winds up married to a brash country bumpkin lawyer.
And I can imagine the concern on her face when she received the letter that I sent her in June 1775, telling her that I had been commissioned Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. In that missive, I enclosed a copy of my will. She was not happy to receive that. But I also made my dear lady wife a promise I'd be home by Christmas. But I did not tell her which Christmas.
We were able to travel by railroad. I made my farewells to my friends and colleagues in Springfield, and off we went down the line, stopping in dozens of places where I could make speeches. The family joined me in Indianapolis, and the crowd would shout, "Where's the old lady? Show us the boys!" And Tad would throw himself down on the floor and refuse to look out the window. It was a document that authorized the creation of the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific to build a rail system to traverse the country from Omaha to Sacramento. In 1863, the Union Pacific had a groundbreaking, and by 1865, they had laid the first rails out in Omaha, and off they went. By May the 10th of 1869, the officials of the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific drove a golden spike into the rails at Promontory Point in Utah. They drove 3 other spikes that day, but they were just silver and iron and had to be driven by a railroad laborer because the executives didn't have a very good grasp of the sledgehammer. When I was a boy, time didn't matter. You got up with the cows and went to bed with the chickens, or vice versa, depending on what you were growing. And it didn't matter what time it was. Why, in one little town, it would be high noon. 5 miles this way, it could be 10 of. 10 miles that way, 5 after. Nobody cared. Didn't matter a bit. Then the railroad come along. And suddenly, well, the train came in at a certain time and left at a certain time, and if you weren't there, you didn't get on it. All of a sudden, time mattered. All the train men, the conductors, and the engineers, they all had to have their watches with great big Arabic numbers on them instead of those elegant Roman numerals. And if your watch was a minute slow or a minute fast, it had to go into the shop until it was fixed up. Ooh, time was of the essence, and the railroads had become a very, very big business.
They were very difficult times. I remember it was during one of those harsh winters that Mr. Thomas Paine, you know Mr. Paine? He used a drumhead for a desk, and he penned those very influential words. These are the times that tried men's souls. It was in his pamphlet called Crisis. Indeed, that retreat through New Jersey was very hard at that time.
Union Pacific became a leader in automotive traffic. Oh, automotive means personalized motor vehicles, carriages, no horse. No. And so they became a leader in automotive traffic between the United States and Mexico. The Union Pacific provides 52% of land-based shipping between Mexico and the United States, passing through Laredo, Texas.
Well, that's worthy of celebration, don't you think?
If we don't learn to pull together, well, we're just going to keep going around in circles until we're exhausted and we sink. But if we can learn to cooperate and all pull at the same time for the same goals and same purposes, why, we will accomplish much progress and have a bright future. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to continue the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, for his widow and his orphan, to do all that may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves, with all nations. But if you're going to travel through time, hold your nose. The past don't smell very good.
The only nation in the world that is not under the control of men and women of absolute power. Every other nation may be wrong, but you're wearing pantalones.
Was there a woman in the army?
Were there any women in my army?
Yes, that's the question, sir.
He has jewelry on his teeth. You must be very wealthy. He was absent for any women in the army, not officially.
The American Historical Theater George Washington performance, presented by Union Pacific Railroad, building America for 150 years.